This movie is about Amber, a young woman who takes a babysitting job with a couple named Brian and Elise. At first, everything seems normal, but soon, strange things start happening. Murders, secrets, and lies. As the story goes on, it becomes clear that nobody is exactly who they seem, and the truth is very different from what everyone thought. So let's dive straight in. The movie opens with a young woman making herself some coffee while chatting on the phone about her new boyfriend. She adds milk and sugar, then takes a sip. Suddenly, she feels dizzy, and the room spins. The mug slips from her hand and crashes to the floor. She falls down too. Something was mixed into her sugar. She tries to crawl toward another room, but an intruder appears, pins her down, and suffocates her. After she's dead, the intruder scatters some pills around to make it look like she took her own life. In another part of town, a young woman named Amber arrives at a house for a babysitting interview. She's late and apologizes to the homeowner, Brian. She thinks she should leave, but Brian invites her inside anyway. Inside, she meets Elise, Brian's wife, who asks where she lives. Amber explains she lives near the hospital. They all sit down for the interview. Amber tells them she wants to go to nursing school, which is expensive, so she's looking to earn money by working as an au pair. She says she worked as an au pair last year, but the family moved away, so she's looking for another job. She also mentions she has some nursing experience. Elise leaves the room to bring out her child. While she's gone, Brian seems a little too interested in Amber. Elise comes back with the kid, and Amber meets the child before leaving. Later that night, Elise thinks about Amber and decides to hire her. Brian agrees, but Elise seems a bit worried. Brian tries to start some intimacy, but Elise isn't in the mood. The next day, Brian is at his office making coffee when a coworker tells him they've secured a big deal. He's thrilled and calls Elise to share the news. Elise congratulates him and also says she's decided to hire Amber. The following day, Brian is working out in his home gym when Amber arrives early. She's an hour ahead of schedule. Brian tells her Elise isn't home yet, but picks up her bags and shows her to her room. Later, Elise comes home and takes Brian to the living room to show him a nanny cam she bought at the mall. It's hidden in a picture frame so they can keep an eye on Amber. That night, Brian and Elise are in bed when Elise dreams of Amber trying to join them. Turns out to be just a nightmare. Brian remains unlucky as before. The next day at work, Elise tells a coworker about the new au pair she hired. Her coworker is surprised because Brian was against hiring one, but Elise says she convinced him. A man named Mr. Dutros shows up and annoys both women. It's clear they're trying to avoid him, but he doesn't take the hint. He makes some threats about work, but then leaves. The two women laugh it off. Later, Brian and Elise sit on a park bench watching Amber play with her son Cody. Brian wants to throw a party to celebrate his work success, but Elise wants to wait until Amber has settled in. Brian insists, and Elise finally agrees. At the party, Elise goes inside to get some beer. On her way back, she notices Amber watching her strangely, but when Elise looks again, Amber is busy with Cody. Later, Brian's coworker goes inside to use the bathroom. On his way out, he runs into Amber and tries to flirt with her, but she brushes him off. That night, Elise thanks Amber for coming into their lives and asks her to lay out Cody's clothes for the next day. When Amber leaves the room, Elise takes the SD card from the secret camera and checks the footage. Seeing nothing suspicious, she relaxes. Later, Amber watches the news about the murder we saw at the start of the movie. Brian suddenly appears behind her and startles her. She offers him a drink. Brian, being a bit of a flirt, sits on the couch while Amber brings the drink and sits next to him like they're close. They start talking and seem about to cross a line, but Brian controls himself and goes back to his bedroom. Amber watches him go with a look that suggests she isn't done yet. Amber then pulls out a hidden phone from a drawer and calls someone for an urgent meeting. The person is her best friend. Amber tells her she's tempted to get involved with Brian. Her friend warns her not to do anything stupid and asks if she's been taking her medication. The next day at the office, Brian finds out the big deal has been taken away from him and given solely to his coworker. He's upset. Elise tries to comfort him, but he leaves the house to clear his head. He returns late at night, drunk, and finds Amber waiting. She invites him to her room, and this time, they finally cross the line. Next day in the morning, Amber tries to make a move on Brian again, but he is now sober, and he declines Amber's advances. Disheartened, Amber breaks down into tears and tries to call her friend again, but can't reach her. Brian's coworker Vance pays him a visit, but Brian isn't really in a mood to talk. He sees Vance being frisky with the boss and immediately understands why he was kicked from the deal. Later that night, Vance is in a motel waiting for somebody to arrive so he can celebrate the deal. A girl who looks like a prostitute arrives. Vance opens the door and immediately gets stabbed and killed by the girl. Next day, detectives turn up at Brian's home and take him in for questioning. They tell him that his boss told him about the friction between him and Vance lately. Brian declines the allegations. That night, while Brian is watching the TV, Amber jumps on him again and tries to blackmail him into having fun time with her, saying that she would tell Elise and she will believe her over him, given his history. Brian brushes her off and goes to his bed. The next day, Elise is having a meeting with her lawyer about the threats to Mr. Dutros. Her lawyer tells her that there really isn't anything that can be done. Amber comes over with Cody, and Elise leaves with Cody and Amber. Later that night, Elise gets the call that her art gallery has been vandalized by someone. She rushes over there and tells the police that Mr. Dutros wanted her space to make a condo complex, and he is the one who vandalized it. Police assure her that they will take due action. Mr. Dutros is in a junkyard when he is attacked and murdered in broad daylight. Brian is summoned again by the detective, and she believes that Brian is the one doing murders. Later in the park, Brian tries to tell her about his stuff with Amber when Elise mentions that Amber doesn't really go to sleep. Instead, she sneaks out at night to God knows where. She's curious about it and wants to know what Amber is up to. At night, she goes out after Amber in her car and follows her to her friend Jax's home. Elise overhears her venting and ranting to Jax about how hard her life is, and Jax tells her that she needs to stop going after married men. Elise hears this all and returns home. Next day, she pays a visit to Jax alone and tells her that she wants to ask some questions about Amber. Jax invites her in. Elise asks about how long they have been friends. Jax tells her since the orphanage, and that Amber's family died when she was 12. She was put into foster care where her foster dad took advantage of her and sexually abused her. All of this was new to Elise, as Amber hadn't told anything about this to them. She takes her leave. Movement after her leave, Jax is attacked and murdered as well in her home. Elise returns home and decides to call Amber's references once again. Suddenly, she hears a mobile ringing in Amber's room. She searches for it and finds it in Amber's drawer. It turns out that Amber had faked her references. Elise calls Brian and tells him about all this and asks him to come home immediately. Amber returns with Cody and Elise takes him to bed. Amber finds her phone at the counter and immediately understands that she has been caught. Elise comes back and calls her out. She knows that she is the one who murdered Vance and Mr. Dutros, and that she has already called the police on her ass. Amber tries to escape, but Elise blocks her way. They both get into a physical fight, and out of nowhere, they both turn into MMA fighters, throwing punches like mad men. Elise pulls out some heavy combos and knocks Amber down to the floor. She attempts to strangle her to death, but Brian comes at the last moment and pulls Elise away, giving Amber a chance to escape. Later at the detectives, they confirm that Amber was the murderer, and they have reached this conclusion after watching the surveillance footage of the night Vance was murdered. 6 months have passed since Amber went off. Brian is working in the garden when he finds a box buried in the soil. He opens it and finds Amber's bracelet. Elise appears behind him and reveals the truth. She was the one who killed Vance and Mr. Dutros. She wore Amber's bracelet while doing the murders to pin them on Amber, and she was successful in doing so. She gives Brian 2 choices. Either he goes to the police and tells them the truth and then raises Cody as a single parent, or just keeps his mouth shut and enjoys the life she has created for them. She was also the one who murdered Jax. Later, Brian goes to the detectives and gives them the bracelet. When he returns, he finds an envelope outside his home. He brings it inside. Elise finds a USB inside it, and when they play it, they find a recording by Amber inside. She tells them that she notices the nanny cam the moment she stepped her feet in the house, and when the murders happened, she knew something was wrong. So she swapped the USB for the nanny cam and recorded Elise after she returned from doing murders. The recording has been sent to the police, and we hear sirens outside their house. The movie ends with Amber enjoying her life in a hotel room, liberated from all the accusers. She was the innocent one after all.